Again, welcome to class. In case you're wondering who's behind me, I have Pope Francis, the hippie Pope, behind me. He's hanging out. Don't get me wrong, I kind of like the Pope. He's a funny guy. But it was the thing that seemed to work best for me this morning. It kind of expressed my mood. Yeah, and there's lots of things I could say there, but I won't. Filtered. You guys hear that? Already filtered. Already did it. Go me. Anyway, welcome to ethics class. Today we're going to be covering just a couple different kind of protocol things, and then we're going to jump right into the material. And so that's the order of business. So first and foremost, as you heard, I do attendance. I am actually surprisingly required to try to get a hold of you if for some reason you don't show up to my class. So if you know that you're going to be absent for a day, let me know that you can't be in class on a particular day, so that if you're not there, I don't have to send you an email. So in other words, let me know first, and then fairly quickly your parents will, if you know a couple of them, then your parents are it's brought to their attention, and then before you know it, grades and not good stuff. So anyway, try to be in class. Let me know if you can't be. I'm going to try to record one class period for every one of the classes I teach, and post that on Google Classroom in a video form, so that if you do miss it or you want to go back and kind of go back through what we've learned, you can. I think that could be a useful thing for you. So I will try to do that. And then the other thing would be, please keep in mind, for those of you who had my class last year, you knew that I did not use Google Classroom. I decided that I would make the switch to Google Classroom this year. And I was going to have the whole first week, teacher week, to get that sort of under control. I had meetings literally from Monday at 8 a.m. until Thursday. I went home at night and slept, so don't worry about that. But till Thursday afternoon. So I've had like 2 days to work on Google Classroom. So anyway, to make a long story short, if it doesn't flow perfectly at first, please give me a little bit of grace, and feel free to shoot me an email and say, Mr. Cook, I was looking for this thing, but it didn't show up, or I don't know how to turn this in. And I'll say, well, I don't either. So we're in the same boat. So anyway, that is the current situation, that I'm working on Google Classroom, and I'm even trying some new technological things. We'll see how that works. I'm a history teacher, so that's not going to be good. We're going to try it anyway. Okay, so there's that. The next thing I would say is this. Typically in our class, you would come in and you get out the Bible and you'd read a little bit and answer some questions. We've been told to really kind of focus our curriculum down a bit, so I've been trying to do that. And so things are going to look a little bit different than things have looked in the past. And so we will be doing less of that sort of thing, but we'll still have a strong focus on theological topics, even though ethics is not primarily, substantially, a theological class. It's a philosophical class focusing on right action, value, and character. And where there's no doubt that theology plays into that on a very sort of basic level. It doesn't necessarily go hand in hand on a daily basis. So keep that in mind. So for being in the Bible department, lots of times we'll be focused on like ethical theory and philosophy. There is a theological underpinning to it, but we won't necessarily focus on that every day. And because we have a shorter class period, you'll probably spend somewhat less time in the Bible than you would otherwise. So the order of business is supposed to go something along the lines of this, and you probably heard this already in your other classes, but I'll repeat it just in case you haven't. A typical day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, should look something along the lines of, in the morning you have a 45-minute class, and you can expect about 45 minutes of homework or so in the afternoon of that day for you to allot time toward. And so this will be that way to some extent in this class, though I will also state that in this particular class, some days may be a little bit longer than others. You know, so the homework that I have assigned for you by Monday includes reading the syllabus, watching 2 short videos, and responding to a few questions. That probably won't take you 45 minutes. It'll probably take you 25 minutes. And so just be flexible if you would. Don't expect exactly it to take you 45 minutes every day. Any questions, Shiloh? No. You just got the volcano going on, and I'm supposed to think that's normal. Yes. Okay. Any questions from anyone else? Okay. One question that you probably would have is...
The volcano is just something that I felt was appropriate considering what's going on outside.
Yeah, and like I say, you know, to people who've been hearing me theorize about our future, guys, like, do you realize we have an election that most people think is going to be like very definitive coming on down the line in like 2 months? Do you realize that because of the COVID situation, we're going to have a lot of mail-in balloting, and most states do not have the infrastructure to deal with that? Do you realize it's going to be close, and that because of the mail-in balloting and the potential fraud and the just messing up, we probably won't know who won? Can you imagine what January is going to look like if we've got COVID running around, we've got attacked Asian hornets that are trying to get us, and then on top of that, oh, and let's not forget that Oregon's burning down. You know, maybe there'll still be some dust or something around at that point. And then on top of that, who won, Biden or Trump? I don't know. Let's hope for the best. Like, let's all get along. Yeah, right. Okay. So one thing I have learned over the last year, this year, 2020, is terrible. So anyway, I mean, maybe you feel the opposite. It's the best thing ever, but I'm not feeling it.
That's great.
Yeah. Anyway, so one question that you'll probably have in terms of, you know, how do I rightly participate in this class? Normally, in my class, you'd come in and you'd have notes, and we would walk through some lecture. You'd take some notes. We'd have a whole bunch of discussion, and that would be kind of the way that we would do class. But I also recognize that taking notes at home, kind of, you know, hanging out in your bedroom, might not be the most natural thing, firstly. And then secondly, some of you may not learn very well by taking notes. It just depends on your own learning style. Some people need to write it down to remember it, to get it. Other people, the writing down is actually a bit of a distraction. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it up to you to participate in whatever way works best for your own learning style. So if you need to write stuff down in order to like bring it into your head, then do so. And if on the other hand, you would rather just kind of pay attention, I'm going to post after I'm done with each unit my PowerPoint presentation so that you can go back and you can look at it. I'll also have our daily lessons, one recording for one of the class periods. I'll try to post one of those as well so that you guys can go back and have all that information at your fingertips. So once again, take notes to the extent that it works for you. When it comes to classroom participation, that's where we're all going to want to make sure that we feel pretty comfortable on Zoom. Ethics class is largely a participatory class, discussion, kind of, when I say discussion, I don't mean like little groups where you get together and discuss stuff, but usually we'll have these large discussions as a class. And so I'm asking that you be willing to unmute yourself and speak. In fact, for some of you, I know you quite well, and I'll be calling on you by name. For others of you, I don't know you quite well yet, but you never know. I might call on you by name anyway. Right, Max?
Yep.
Yep, there we go. And so just be willing to recognize those things and go what direction works for you. Okay. And now I'm going to ask some questions, and this is where you respond. You talk back here. How many of you have heard rumors, a reputation about the ethics class, Mr. Cook's ethics class? How many of you have heard a reputation in regards to Mr. Cook's ethics class? Would someone like to, and I'm not going to call on you, too boldly here, to share what that reputation is that you have heard? Hannah.
Well, this was like way back freshman year that I heard this, but I heard that you're scary, which is not true. And then also that you make people cry, which has never happened in last year, I don't think. So yeah, those are the two things I heard freshman year, but just generally that it's like really hard. So
I'm scary and I make people cry and it's hard.
That's just things I've heard.
I'm hitting it out of the park there. Yeah.
It's not me saying that. It was some random senior.
I know. I understand that. Keilana, what have you heard?
I heard you get pens thrown at you and that there's a lot of arguing.
Yes. I've had pens thrown at me. I even had a stapler chucked at me at one point. Although, I mean, you think that COVID is the reason we went to Zoom? No, it's to protect me from staplers. I mean, you can chuck a stapler, but you'll just hit your screen. So, yeah, Coursera.
Okay, so I've heard that one, you play devil's advocate, which you do in all of your classes, so it should come as no surprise.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
And two, I've heard that it can be, your class, ethics, can be really frustrating at times, but it's one of the most valuable classes that people have taken in high school.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad. I know that.
There's one good thing in there somewhere.
I hope that is the case. What was that, Keilana?
I said there's one good thing in that list somewhere.
Yeah. Hopefully it's valuable. It can be very frustrating. One person earlier today said you either love it or you hate it. I've heard that as well. So there are lots of rumors surrounding the class, and I want to actually dispel some of the rumors now. And so I'm going to share my screen with you guys, and then we're going to so a number of, just to preface the preface. Yes, I do that sometimes, preface the preface. A number of years ago, probably 2 or 3 years ago, I had about 5 or 6 students that were so frightened of ethics class that because of the rumors, they were like almost in tears on the first day. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what is going on? And you're probably thinking girls. No, not all. Girls and boys both on the verge. This is gonna be terrible. Mr. Cook's gonna kill me or something. And so I realized that I think it's important to talk about why. Keep in mind, I'm not changing my methods. I'm not all of a sudden gonna be like, never mind, I'm just gonna make everyone feel good and we can all be happy and sing Kumbaya. Boring. That would be boring. No, I'm not doing that at all. Instead, I'm going to share with you why I do class the way that I do, to kind of, if there is any concern, if any of you are on the verge of, crying, to sort of put some of that aside. So let's look at why the class is the way that it is. Whoa, that's the wrong thing. Wrong button. Hold on. Right button. Wrong spot. There we go. Okay. So I just asked you the question, what have you heard? Talked about some of your feelings. Not too many of you look like you were on the verge of crying, but then again, you could be acting for the screen, acting for the camera on your computer. So here's my warning. Sometimes, some of you, not all of you, may be mad. Some of you sometimes might be mad at Mr. Cook, or at the very least, very frustrated with me or the person I'm pretending to be. You might be mad at your fellow classmates. I've had students come in thinking they're friends and leave realizing that they disagree on some stuff, and then finding that they had some things in common with other people they didn't think they did. Sometimes you might even get mad at yourself. Now, when I say that, I mean this. Sometimes I will present an idea and you'll think it's good when it's really bad. And then, 3 days later, I'll walk in and I'll be someone else. And I'll say, this idea that I've been convincing you of is stupid. And then you might be mad at yourself for believing it. There's a warning. Sometimes you'll hear me say this. Sometimes I won't say it, but no, it's always implied. What I say today might cause you to become upset or distraught. It's not necessarily what I actually think. If I hurt your feelings, I'm sorry. And by the way, that's probably the only time I'm going to say that, unless you run out of the Zoom meeting crying, in which case I'll be like, I'm sorry, come back. Okay. Now, these are questions that students have sometimes asked of me. Why would Mr. Cook teach in a way that might make me feel upset? I'm not necessarily always a big fan of this guy, but Ben Shapiro says some pretty funny things. I don't know if you know who that is. You should. He's interesting. He also uses some fallacies in his arguments. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But one thing he does say that I think is kind of funny. Uh-oh. Got a chat going on here? Why are they all in caps? Good question. I probably had the caps button stuck on. Couldn't figure out how to undo it. I'm a history teacher, don't judge. I'm going to stick with that. So Mr. Ben Shapiro says something that I think is kind of funny. Facts don't care about your feelings. Kind of true. And frankly, I don't feel like my job is to make you feel good about life, but rather to make you to think. And so that's my goal. I want you to think, and I want you to be challenged, and I want you to get used to being challenged, because that's life. Why did Mr. Cook let me walk out of class or out of my Zoom session? When I say walk, I mean metaphorically walk from the chair in my bedroom to the chair in my bedroom. Feeling less secure about my beliefs than I really want. Well, once again, whether you get challenged by me or you get challenged when you walk out of your Zoom session bedroom, you will be challenged. And I think it's good to have practice now. And why won't I just tell you what's right? Well, firstly, I could be wrong. And secondly, I want you to think for yourself. So a lot of times I'll argue something, I'll argue for it fairly strongly. You'll think that I actually believe it. And then I'll come around and I'll take the opposite position and I'll argue against it. And you won't know what I really think about it. You don't know if I agree with it or not. And I think that's good for you, because then you have to figure it out on your own. You don't have to, you don't say, well, Mr. Cook just thinks such and such, so I might as well too. No, that's the easy way out. I'm not giving it to you. Okay. Why? You guys remember when this would happen in class all the time? I'd be trying to teach and then the stupid thing wouldn't work. Oh my gosh. What a pile of junk. Okay, I'll just do that. Hey, now it works. You never know what's going to work. Can you guys see it? You can see the screen. Yes, okay, good. Okay, so this is how I want you to think of the class. And yes, this is still a long preface and it is what it is. I want you to think of the class. Because some class periods you might get done and be like, well, Mr. Cook is the devil. He just is. And I hate ethics. No. Don't ditch the class one class period at a time. Wait till the whole thing's done. Look back at the whole and say, yeah, that was good, or no, that wasn't. But wait till the end, okay? Because it's one whole class. It's not one class period. Judge it as a whole rather than by the parts. Remember, the main overall goals are for your good, What are those goals? So here are the goals of the class. I want you to develop the ability to sort through challenging intellectual ideas on your own, rather than parroting what mom and dad said, parroting what Fox News said, or parroting whatever else, wherever else you get your ideas. I want you to figure these things out on your own, or at least start figuring these things out on your own. I want you to develop the ability to think logically and to recognize your base assumptions. It's kind of interesting, if you've paid any attention to really anything going on, lots of times people will be discussing a topic, right? They'll be discussing a topic and they'll be disagreeing about the proper response to a topic. And, you know, whether you could say abortion, right? So talking about abortion. But believe it or not, usually when people are arguing about something like abortion and whether it should be legal or not, it's not so much that they disagree about, though they do, but it's the underlying assumptions that the people have that lead them to different conclusions in regards to that specific issue. And so what I want you to be able to do is to recognize your own base assumptions. And when you hear other people speak, be able to point out their base assumptions, or at least recognize them, just simply by listening to them speak for a little while. What do I mean base assumptions? Can I give you any details as to what that might mean? Well, rather than saying, what do you think about abortion? I might say, what do you think about the purpose of humanity? What do you think about the value of the individual human? What is your purpose in life? What is the nature of humanity? Are humans naturally nice, loving, creative, cooperative? Are humans naturally selfish and even sometimes destructive? What is the nature of humanity? God. Is there such a thing as God? If there is a God, what is that God like? What does that God require? What you believe about those things matters. That is a base assumption. And so figuring out what you believe about those base assumptions and then making sense of all the details is really the way to go about developing a coherent and logical system. After discerning what your base assumptions are, you should adopt a logical ethical system. We'll go over quite a few in class. And then you will create the PEST. Does anybody know what the acronym PEST stands for? Anybody know what the acronym PEST?
You don't want?
What?
The things in your house that you don't want.
No, that would not be an acronym.
Darn it.
Hannah.
I know it's personal ethical system something, but I can't remember the last part.
Yes, the last word is a word that we will also bring up very shortly, actually, in this very class period. The word is thesis. Personal ethical system thesis. Can you guys imagine this? You write your personal ethical system thesis right at the very end of the class. And then you read it in front of the entire class and myself. And also, oftentimes, if we were like on campus, there'll be other people joining us from all sorts of other classes. So sometimes your audience includes Mr. Villers, Mr. Richard, and the entire sophomore class. That happens sometimes. And then you defend it in front of everybody. How many of you think that sounds exciting? How many of you think that sounds kind of terrifying? Wow, there's more terrifying than exciting. Okay, well, that is also one of our goals. And then finally, and I know not everyone in our school is a Christian, and I understand that that is the case, but for Christians, I would like you to be able to be able to recognize a lot of the kind of the random junk that other Christians have like tacked on to the Christian faith, and be able to be critical with that and comfortable in your faith, and be willing to throw out all the stuff that's been tacked on. And I don't want to step on anyone's toes too much here, but let me do that a little bit. So when I say superfluous and illogical additions to the faith, what might I mean? Well, I invite you to take a few steps into Hobby Lobby sometime and look at the like Christian random sayings section, where it's like, dream big, God's the great dreamer. And you're like, oh, that's spiritually deep. Like that sort of stuff. Or God works all things together for good. I mean, have you ever heard that before? Where does that come from? Does anyone know? It doesn't come from Hobby Lobby. Hannah.
Isn't it a verse somewhere in the Bible? I don't know the book or the verse or the chapter, but
Yes, you're right.
like God works.
Yes, it's not a proverb. No, it's out of Romans. And if you read the rest of it, all of a sudden, for those of you who aren't Calvinists, you get very nervous. It goes something along the lines of God works all things together for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Like those whom he has predestined, he has foreknown to become the children of God. And you're like, oh, yeah, Calvin. Okay, anyway, yeah, there you go. Okay, moving on here. Okay. Okay, so ignore that, and that. It will be on the slideshow online, by the way, all that stuff. So it gives some more direct answers to some of the questions that we just looked at. But now we're going to move on, and we're going to be talking about what it means to make an argument and to focus specifically on logic. So there are multiple different categories or multiple different areas of philosophical inquiry. Things like ethics, epistemology, ontology, and logic. And there are others as well, jurisprudence, so on and so forth. And so in order to have any sort of really good ethical discussions, we kind of need to know how to make our thoughts coherent with language. And well, let me see really quickly here. I got to expand this again. How many of you really like math? How many of you don't like math? Oh, wow. Okay. So I've got some good news and some bad news for you. Good news, if you really like math, logic is like math. It's like math with words. If you don't like math, but you like words, it's like math with words. You're gonna love it. I don't promise you, but I come close to promising you. Okay, you do need to be familiar with this definition, and this is the first question on the logic test that we take here in about 2.5 weeks. And I can't tell you how many people get this wrong because they don't look at it. So look at the words and try to figure out what it means. What would be the study of methods and principles that would be used to distinguish correct reasoning from incorrect reasoning? Some of my students wrongly write down the word ethics. Ethics is the study of methods and principles. No, it's not. No, ethics is about how we ought to live. Logic helps us to distinguish correct reasoning from incorrect reasoning. And let me also say that it is the most dependable instrument of inquiry. When I say dependable here, I mean it's the most likely to lead you to true things. You might say, well, what other instruments of inquiry are there? I'm not going to have you raise your hand here, but maybe one of your parents is a little bit crazy. I mean, in a good way. My mom was a little bit crazy. To give you an example, like weird crazy. I'm not saying that there's anything to this outside of just random, but go ahead and take it further if you want. My mom was, I don't know what she had going on, but it was weird. We would be driving down the road, and then all of a sudden she would say, I feel like we're going to see a deer. Drive around the corner and there'd be a deer. Like, and she was almost never wrong. That's weird, right? We would go elk hunting, and she would have a dream of an elk, like located somewhere. And then she would wake up and ask my dad, do you know a place that looks like this? My dad would say, well, yes, I do. And she would say, go there. And he would, and then he'd shoot the elk. She even dreamed one time that it bugled, and bang, there he was bugling, bang. That's weird. How many think that's just weird? How many of you are like, nope, that's normal? Okay, that's what we would call intuition. Weird intuition. I don't know. I don't have any explanation for it. But oftentimes, how many of you have ever felt, that you have this intuitive feeling, this sense? How many of you have ever had that before? How many of you have ever had that and been distinctly wrong? Yeah, I think most of us probably have. I sure have. I really feel strongly here about something. Oh, it's just wrong. And with logic, because it's much like math, when you have things logically worked out, if your premises are true, the conclusion necessarily is true. If it's a logical, deductive, valid argument. We'll get to what all those words mean. I think what a lot of people think of when we hear the word argument is that you have two different people who disagree with each other and yell about it. Just contradict each other. But that's not what an argument actually is. That's a bad cultural misuse and maybe even cultural appropriation, if you will, of the word argument. An argument is simply any group of propositions of which one is claimed to follow from the others, which are regarded as providing support or grounds for the truth of the position that you're trying to convince others of, or the point that you're arguing for. Must the conclusion of the argument, what you're trying to get others to conclude, come only at the end of an argument? What do you guys think? Where else can the hi? Me and the Pope say hi. Where else can that conclusion show up? Just shout it out, people. Well, unmute yourself and shout it.
The beginning.
At the beginning, what do you call that introduction of the conclusion at the beginning? What do you call that? It's a word we already mentioned, Levi.
I don't know.
You did that a whole bunch of times last year in my AP class.
Thesis.
Yeah, a thesis. A thesis is basically the conclusion in an argument that you want your reader to draw. And then after that, you provide all the support or the grounds of support for the truth of the argument or the thesis that you are making. And so once again, if you look at the definition, there's the word proposition there. Let's talk about what a proposition is here really, really quickly. Obviously, if you are someone who really enjoys rhetoric and enjoys discussing things with rhetorical flair, you might move past just simply using simple direct propositions. And in those circumstances, when your listeners and the other people you're discussing with understand what you're doing, it's okay. But when you want to make an argument very clear, if clarity is what you're going for, then you want to use really basic propositions that are direct. And if we're talking about English, how many of you like English instead of math? Okay, so maybe you're familiar with the type of sentence that's a declarative sentence, right? A declarative sentence would be different than like a question or an exclamation. And that's exactly what a proposition is. A proposition is something that is declaratively asserted or denied. We're not thinking about truth right now. We're talking about just simply assertions. It is raining. It is not raining. It's either doing one or the other. Obama is currently the president. Well, he's actually not currently the president, but that's still a proposition. And in order to have a very clear argument, you need to have a series of propositions. So to go back to the definition of argument, you have a series of propositions of which one of those propositions are claimed to follow from the others. And so most of the time when you have a very simple, let's say deductive type of argument, you'll have proposition 1, proposition 2, proposition 3, maybe proposition 4, 5, or 6, and then you have your conclusion. And if you word things just right, and if those propositions are all true, then your conclusion is also necessarily true. So what a proposition is not, in case we're confused, is not a question, it is not a command, and it is not an exclamation. So when, and you might be saying, Mr. Cook, what does this have to do with anything? It has a lot to do with what you're going to be doing very shortly. So on Monday, when we get to class, we are going to be trying to write arguments, and we'll be using propositions. We'll be using at least 3 propositions in our arguments that we create, and we're claiming that one of those propositions, either at the beginning or at the end of the argument, follows from the other ones. Does that make any sense? Really quickly, because our class is going to be out here right now-ish. On my Google Classroom, you'll notice that your homework consists of reading the syllabus, signing it, having a parent or guardian read it and sign it as well, take a picture and send it. That's part 1 of the homework for Monday, by Monday. And then part 2 is basically you watch 2 little videos about who God is. What is the Christian understanding of God? It doesn't have a bunch to do with logic, but it does have a lot to do with Christianity broadly. And I don't want anyone going through our Bible programs without actually having some sort of conception of the Christian God. Who is the Christian God? So that's the question that is asked. Who is God? What is the Trinity? There's a couple of videos, and then you have a few questions you have to respond to and then send that back as well. Okay. We will continue working in logic starting on Monday. And like I say, you will get to start writing arguments, and then we'll be looking at different types of arguments and deductive arguments that are valid and arguments that are true. So that's all coming on down the line. If it seems really simplistic now, and hopefully it does, it will seem a lot less simplistic by the time we get to the back end of this. Any questions before I let you all go? None at all? Well, it's nice to see all of you. Thanks for stopping by today in class. We'll see you on Monday, or before then for some of you, Shiloh, theoretically. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, for example, is it okay if on the exam, for example, I don't know the words, and can you help me in that, for example?
Here, let me turn up the sound really fast. Can you repeat that?
So,
your mic isn't very loud.
Okay, so if on the exam there is hard words, is it okay that you can help me with that? Or because in some classes, like I don't know, I don't understand some words, and I'm asking you for help. Is it okay? Because in some classes last year, a teacher had a problem with that.
Yeah, no, I would be fine with that. If you ask me, I mean, obviously, if it's like you know, it depends on the question, right? So if it's a definition, like what does the word logic mean? Like I can't tell you.
No, I don't mean like not that kind of questions.
Yeah, but so if there's an English word in there that you're not familiar with and you don't know what it means, and you say, I don't know what this word means. Yeah, of course.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
of course.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Have a good day.
Yep, you too.
Thank you.